Hi everyone, welcome to The Green Room, a place where theater people come to discuss their practice, process, and profession. I'm Jeremy Dobresh, director/playwright, and today we're doing our 5-4 segment with Jessica Dickey. So, who's Jessica Dickey and why are we talking to her? Well, Jessica is an actor and a writer who is a founding member of the fire department and who has worked with theater companies such as New George's, Keane Company, and Red Bull. Jessica is also a writer whose latest play is the Amish Project, which she also stars in at the Rattlestick Theater Company through July 12th. Jessica agreed to sit down with us at our Green Room HQ to do our 5-4 segment, 5 questions for Jessica Dickey.
I'm Jessica Dickey, and I'm the writer-performer of the Amish Project. And we're running at Rattlestick until July 12th.
The Amish Project is inspired by true events, but also fictionalized. How did you decide what to keep real and what to embellish?
I think there's such a well-paved road for documentary theater. It's a great genre. But this was a completely different impulse. It never even occurred to me, really, to go knock on the door of any of the families of victims or the gunman's family and be like, so tell me about this. That is just not at all. I sort of wanted to go in and explore, my own ideas of who these people could have been in order to go into the themes of the play and the events of the play, but on my own terms. I guess, to be honest, I wanted to keep them very separate. If I may quote the Times on this, I loved what he wrote. He was like, it's like as if I wrote the stories from 9/11 that I just made up. And there was something about that both is very charming and funny, and then also was very accurate in that I took a real event, but I fictionalized all the characters and sort of key players in the event. So that it's taking the fact that there was this Amish schoolhouse shooting in this particular area, but I'm completely creating and fictionally exploring the cast of people that would have played out in that event.
What was it about the events that made you want to present it as a one-woman show as opposed to a more traditional play?
When I started writing it, I didn't know that it would be a solo show. And I think when I began writing, the characters that I really knew was sort of that first impulse, that first breath, to start writing was definitely the 2 Amish girls and the widow, Carol. And in the play, the 2 Amish girls are named Anna and Veldis. There was this sort of tight, intimate triangle of the 3 of them. That was like the first sort of wave of writing. And it's funny, many of those speeches have not changed since I wrote them in my journal, way back when. It just felt organic. And so I'd never really particularly felt called to do solo work, which is probably another reason that I didn't really look back. And I proceeded kind of with this feeling that was the direction the piece was going in.
What was it about this tragedy that inspired you, and what themes were you interested in exploring?
This particular school shooting, I think, of course, because it involved the Amish community, and it targeted the Amish community, and it wasn't someone within the Amish community, so it was an outsider, or an Englisher, as they refer to people who are not Amish, coming into the Amish community and, targeting. So that immediately brings in this very interesting us-them in terms of our mainstream culture and the ills that we suffer in our mainstream culture, which I think directly contribute to a school shooting. And then this Amish culture. There was just so much that was suddenly going on culturally in this event, very suddenly. And watching the 2 cultures collide in, frankly, a very tragic way. But then watching that story quickly turn into also a case study of a completely different kind of response that was evidence of their culture, not ours, which was this nonviolent response. The Amish immediately reached out to the gunman's family to embrace them and to express forgiveness and compassion for their loss and their plight in this tragedy. And I really feel like that struck us dumb nationally, that it was just like, what? You can do that? I on some level, while on nonviolence is, of course, as old as the hills, I think that was totally unprecedented.
With all of the characters you play, how did you decide what the aesthetic of character shifts would be?
I think in some ways we got to skip a lot of the intricacies of what you're asking about in terms of process and just defining that aesthetic because I had written the piece and I was going to perform it. So Sarah Cameron Sunda, who is my brilliant director and friend and collaborator on this piece, she she used to joke that I was the queen of rhythm. And she would joke about that because the piece does have this definite pulse that's sort of coursing underneath of it. And I have to say that that did a lot of the work in terms of deciding how the shifts would happen, and that there was kind of this rhythm that was happening within the text. A huge creative stroke in the piece is that everyone is wearing the ethnic garb of an old order Amish girl who would have been targeted in the shooting. So then it became a very simple matter of how to clearly communicate what character we're in with body and voice. And but with that, I just wanted to maintain economy. You know, the piece has very little fat on it, actually, in terms of the writing. There's very little extra stuff in there. It's a very lean piece in terms of the writing. So that sort of also dictated that the transitions needed to be lean and very simple. All of that feels a part of the text, and it kind of really set the tone for how the rest of the production would fall into place.
How was the Amish Project developed, and what is its future?
So I wrote the piece relatively quickly, actually. In like December of 2007, maybe January 2008, that first draft was kind of coming together, and I mostly researched Amish culture because I really remembered so much about the crime just because it was so awful. And I felt like I really needed to learn about Amish culture in order to be able to write the play. I submitted that first draft to Fringe in around February, I believe, of 2008, and got in May 2008. So I had about 2 days of shutdown where I went to the cave and I was like, what do I do? And then, I had got a good piece of advice, which was get help. And so that sort of began finding my creative team and hiring Sarah and really pulling together what would be a great little show in Fringe. That's how we hooked up with Morgan Jeunesse from Abrams Artists, who is, I really can't speak highly enough about her as a person, but then also what she has done for this play and the way that she has taken it on. She's a huge part of its story. We began looking for a home for the piece, which is when we found Cherry Lane, and we workshopped for a month. Cherry Lane had originally intended and hoped to world premiere the play, but then sort of everything kind of hit the fan in terms of the financial climate in our country. So that kind of fell through, and we immediately, we meaning the Amish production team, kind of hatched a plan to start raising money to be able to bring a co-production situation once we found a new home. We decided to reach out to the people that had expressed support for the play to ask them, kind of Obama style, if they would be willing to help us find a new home for the piece. And that is in part how we were able to be at Rattlestick for our world premiere. So from here, we're sort of talking with regional theaters across the country, of course, but also small communities. And so we're sort of slowly building where the Amish Project tour. But it's just been, I'm looking forward to doing the piece. And I'm also interested in exploring the piece as an ensemble.
My thanks to Jessica Dickey. Next time we hope to be sitting down with Tom Kitt, the Tony Award-winning composer of Next to Normal. Until then, you can friend us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on iTunes, or go to our website, jeremysgreenroom.com, where you can leave a comment or RSS us so you'll know when the next episode is posted. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time in the Green Room. We're going to go out today with the cast of Next to Normal singing Superman and the Invisible Girl.
Superboy and the Invisible Girl, son of steel and daughter of air. He's a hero, a lover, a prince, she's not there. Superboy and the Invisible Girl,